In the headlines tonight, a scholar reiterates African solution for African problems is making a significant difference in the case of Ethiopia. Ethiopia observes 86 Martyrs Day. Good evening to you all. A very warm welcome to ETV News. I'm Grum Tariku. During the 36th African Union Heads of State and Government Summit, a scholar approached by ETV reiterated that African solution for African problems is making a significant difference in the case of Ethiopia. He also added that Ethiopian Green Legacy Initiative would be such exemplary to the people of Africa. Tugasaresa reports.
Approached by ETV press writer on African affairs, Meki El-Mograbi reiterated that African solution for African problem is making a significant difference in the case of Ethiopia.
Yes, I think this is an African Union slogan, and it has been implemented in the Ethiopian case in Pretoria Agreement. And not just that, even when I attend Libyan events and I talk to Libyan officials, just like the official from the the Transition Presidential Council and the spokesperson Najwa Wahiba, they said that African solution is African problem for African problems is making difference. Is making difference, especially in the case of Ethiopia and many other cases, and they count on the African Union to continue an African solution for African problems.
He further stressed that in some parts of Africa, enabling free movement of people across the continent has a positive impact on the implementation of African Continental Free Trade Area.
I think the continental level, some achievements happened, and people they don't give attention or focus on what happened in some cases or some sectors. I think the free movement in Africa started to appear. Some African countries, they give African citizens visa on arrival, including Ethiopia. They give more than 30 African countries in Africa or in sub-Saharan Africa visa on arrival. And that is a development regarding the free economy in Africa. And it make difference, positive difference on the issue of implementing AfCFTA.
The writer further added that Ethiopia's Green Legacy Initiative could be a model for African people.
As a person that I follow up the environmental things, I am aware of the big achievement that happened in the Green Legacy in Ethiopia. And I think it could be a model for African people.
During the 36th ordinary session of heads of state and governments, the 21-years-old AU dwelt at length on ways of accelerating the African Free Trade Area. Climate change also received a fair share of the AU summit's focus. The direction put forward to tackle institutional reform as well as peace and security are expected to lead a great leap forward. Tegesser Nisa reporting for EBC inside the AU headquarters, Addis Ababa.
FDRE President Sahle-Work Zewde held discussion with the President of the European Council, Charles Michel, on ways of strengthening Ethiopia-EU relations. In the discussion, they advised on ways to further strengthen Ethiopia's relationship with the Union. They agreed to further strengthen Ethiopia's strong relationship with the European Council. Their discussion also covered current state of affairs in Ethiopia. European Council President Charles Michel expressed his satisfaction with a peace agreement reached between the Ethiopian government and TPLF. In a related development, Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed has maintained held discussion with President of the European Council, Charles Michel, on the sidelines of the 36th Ordinary Session of the Assembly of Heads of State and Government of the African Union. The Prime Minister and European Council President this discussion focused on progress made by the Ethiopian government on the peace agreement, development endeavors, and the Ethiopia EU relations. The FDRE Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed has also held bilateral discussion with the President of Tanzania, Samia Suluhu Hassan, on the margins of the ongoing ordinary session of the Assembly of Heads of State and Government of the African Union here in Addis Ababa. The bilateral discussion with Vice President of the Presidential Council of State of Libya, Abdullah Hussein al-Lafi, as well as State Minister of United Arab Emirates. Similarly, Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed and Djiboutian President Ismail Omar Guelleh inaugurated and opened a new Djibouti embassy built here in Addis Ababa. According to the Office of the Prime Minister, the ceremony is attended by ambassadors and diplomats, including IGAD Chairperson Workneh Gabayo. "86 years ago, the fascist Italian invaders led by the East African visionary Marshal Rudolf Graziani unleashed the most horrible ever terror against Ethiopians. On the day, 30,000 innocent Addis Ababans were mercilessly murdered when two Ethiopian Eritrean youth, Mogas Asgedom and Abraham Daboch, threw grenade against Graziani in an attempt to kill him. The day was observed here today at the Yekatit 12 Martyrs Monument at the 6 Kilo area of Arada sub-city. Officials, including Addis Ababa City Administration Mayor Adane Chabebe, President of the Ethiopian Patriots Association, Lij Daniel Jote Masfen, have laid wreaths at the monument to honor the martyrs. Speaking on the occasion, Mayor Adane Chabebe said Ethiopia has maintained its independence by the sacrifices of our forefathers. Therefore, the Mayor said, we must maintain the glory of the country that the previous generation have preserved for us through a great struggle, and we need to ensure its prosperity. Ethiopian Patriots Association President Lijanel Jote Masfen, for his part, reiterated that the previous generation protected the honor of the country, urging the current generation to replicate these by overcoming poverty.
Welcome to Ethiopia, the land of origin.
Ethiopia has become a model in green development initiative which other countries need to replicate. African Risk Capacity, ARC said. Director General of ARC Group and the United Nations Assistant Secretary General Ibrahim Ching-Doing said that Ethiopia has done a splendid job on carbon emission and minimizing climate-induced impacts. Johannes van Town presents the full story.
African Risk Capacity is an institution that consists of 35 African countries as members and is established to respond quickly to various disasters that occur in the member states and to carry out activities that can withstand climate change. In a press briefing given on the sidelines of the 36th African Union Summit, it was revealed that disaster prevention institutions in African countries are not able to reduce the amount of damage caused by disasters in the continent because of lack of coordination.
In most of our countries, the problem with disaster management, the responsibility lies in different ministries, different government entities, and unfortunately, any lack of coordination could cost life and livelihood. So it is extremely critical that our government entities actually coordinate themselves. So there is an intervention that's highly coordinated, and that's why preparation is important.
The Director General said that Ethiopia has tremendous experience in mitigating climate change through tree planting. According to him, this Ethiopian Green Initiative development would be helpful to tackle the drought-related and other natural risks in the country as well as in the region.
In the case of climate change, the two aspects of intervention is mitigation and adaptation. On the mitigation front, the advice being given to many of our countries to favor what we call tree planting, but also land management. And Ethiopia has tremendous experience on that fall. And the same way in the rest of Africa, they're also pushing what they call the Great Green Wall. And this is really an initiative that's pushed by many African countries, at least to restore the land, but also the tree, so we can actually reduce the emission that you have on the gas. So what Ethiopia has as a model, this is something certainly we're interested in seeing, but other countries can learn from that and replicate that model as well.
In its 10 years of launching African Risk Capacity, firstly with a drought insurance program has made payout of over $900 million to participating African governments as a result of drought and tropical cyclone events affecting countries in the continent. And about its future ambitions, the Director General went on to say the following.
As of today, ARC has about 35 member states. And now you know Africa is more than 35, with 55. So our ambition is to make sure that every African country become a member of ARC so we can demonstrate the leadership of Africa in dealing with disaster management. Second, disaster does not mean the same thing to all of our countries. In other words, drought may be prevalent in the Horn of Africa, in the Sahel. It may not be the case in other countries. So we want to diversify the product that we offer to our member states from drought, tropical cyclone, outbreak and epidemic, and flood to make sure we can address the relevant disasters affecting our member states. Going forward also, we need to amplify the African voice and concerns at COP28. It is extremely critical for Africans to be fully coordinated. So when they go to this big event, the African voice and concerns are heard loud and clear, and we will definitely utilize our experience as a convening power and make sure the African voice is actually coordinated.
African Risk Capacity is a specialized agency of the African Union established in 2012 to help member states better plan, prepare and respond to the natural disasters and manage risks.
The first forum on Pan-Africanism kicked off today at the African Leadership Excellence Academy in the presence of Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed and other African leaders. Attending the event, Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed stressed that reinvigorating and recalibrating Pan-Africanism requires us to disrupt the status quo and leap into the future. Potentials need to change to products. Our minds need to transform our lands. We need to create green and green environment, he said. He also added that Pan-Africanism should flourish as an idea of cooperative integration, global competitiveness and peaceful coexistence. African youth and women should share their due space in leadership and development. The forum, organized by African Leadership Excellence Academy, AFLEX, is underway under the theme Reinvigorating Pan-Africanism for a Changing World. In addition to the leaders of the African countries, policymakers, academicians, civil society organizations, the youth and women representatives, and over 300 participants have been attending the forum. AFLEC's Chief of Academy, Mehret Debebe, said presentation of papers and lectures as well as panel discussion will be held in Pan-Africanism to recalibrate on Pan-Africanism in the 21st century and lessons learned from the AU's Africa peer review mechanism at the forum. The AFLEX Academy is set up to become a premier learning institution, nurturing development and growth-oriented mindsets with the capacity to meet the demands of the 21st century leadership in the public, civic and private sectors with a Pan-Africanism orientation. The emergence of coffee is entailed from the origin of fertile ever soil of Ethiopia centuries back. The Taste of Original International Coffee Agreement 2007, the seventh agreement since 1962, was agreed by the 77 members of the International Coffee Council, meeting in London on the 28th of September 2007. It was formally adopted by the Council through Resolution 431 and entered into force definitely on the 2nd of February 2011. Daniel Kasaun has more on this.
The membership comprises exporting and importing governments, including the European Union, with 28 member states, with 6 new members: Liberia, Sierra Leone, Timor-Leste, Tunisia, Turkey, and Yemen. Among the governments have completed membership procedures of the 27 agreement to date. The 27 agreement will strengthen the ECO's role as a forum of intergovernmental consultation, facilitating intergovernmental trade through increased transparency and access to relevant information, and promote a sustainable coffee economy for the benefit of all stakeholders, and particularly of small-scale farmers in coffee-producing countries. Is an important instrument for development cooperation and will provide the legal framework for core activities undertaken by the organization in the future. 19 ISO members are least developed countries with low incomes and high-income vulnerability, and there are more than 25 million small coffee farmers and their families who produce 7% of the world's coffee and are particularly affected by fluctuations in market prices and imbalances in supply and demand. The preamble specifically acknowledges the contribution of sustainable coffee sector to the achievement of international agri-development goals, including the Millennium Development Goals, particularly with respect to poverty eradication.
First Lady Zinash Tayacho has called for concerted efforts and firm focus on gender equality. First Lady Zinash Tayacho made the remark at the regular meeting of the 27th African First Ladies. In her statement, the First Lady stressed that efforts should be enhanced to reduce the gap in gender equality. According to the Office of the First Lady Ethiopia, the 27th Annual General Meeting of African First Ladies is being held starting from February 15, 2023 here in Addis Ababa.
Africa is the second largest continent with a population of more than 1.4 billion. But what is the Africa that we want?
An Africa that's free of civil war and corruption.
An Africa that is resilient.
An Africa that has citizens who are proud of being an African.
An Africa that is free from hunger.
An Africa that is self-sufficient and prosperous.
That is the Africa we want. And these are the stories ETV will bring to you.
Chinese President Xi Jinping said it's ready to work with African leaders to further strengthen China-Africa friendship and cooperation. Chinese President Xi Jinping sent a congratulatory message to the 36th African Union Summit. In his message, President Xi pointed out that over the past year, the EU has united and led African countries to actively address global challenges, accelerate the construction of the African Continental Free Trade Area, and play an important role in mediating hotspots issues. He added the international status and influence of Africa have continuously risen. I sincerely wish African countries and people greater success on the road to development and revitalization, said Xi. The Chinese president stressed that China-Africa relations maintaining a good momentum of development in 2022 as China-Africa cooperation has continued to develop in all-round, multi-level and high-quality manner and is at the forefront of international cooperation with Africa. She said he is ready to work with African leaders to further strengthen China-Africa friendship and cooperation, closely coordinate and cooperate in international and regional affairs, and promote the building of high-level China-Africa community with shared values. Ethiopian Embassy in Washington, D.C. hosted a colorful cultural and tourism promotion event in cooperation with thingstododc.com. Seleshi Bekele, Ethiopia's ambassador to the United States of America, on his opening remarks said, Ethiopia is a cradle of mankind, one of the oldest civilizations in the world, never colonized, a founding member of the United Nations and the African Union. He also added that Ethiopia's various attractions offer greater opportunities for archaeological and religious tourism, hunting safaris, bird watching, water sports, desert trekking, mountain hiking, camping, and ecotourism. He encouraged participants to visit Ethiopia and exercise the hidden treasures of the nation and enjoy the warm hospitality of the people. Mr. Greg Bladd, CEO of thingstododc.com, expressed his commitment of working closely with the embassy to promote the rich history and culture of Ethiopia to the American public. Ethiopian traditional coffee ceremony was with organic taste, and authentic Ethiopian cuisine was served to the attendants. Traditional songs and dance, artifacts, alphabets, Ethiopian classic paintings, and cultural attires were also showcased, which gave a special aura to the program. The participants expressed their satisfaction by the colorful event and affirmed their plan to visiting Ethiopia to explore the rich history and stunning attractions, according to the Ethiopian Embassy in Washington, D.C.
Welcome to the land of origins. Commercial Bank of Ethiopia is pleased to serve all your traveler banking needs. If you have money from any of these 16 countries, you can convert it to local currency by visiting our nearest branch. Alternatively, our secure Forex ATMs accept cash exchange, or if you prefer using your cards, we've partnered with Visa, MasterCard, and UnionPay so that you can withdraw cash from our local ATMs or make cashless transactions at thousands of local POS partners securely and with confidence. We are linked with more than 700 global banks through our direct SWIFT address, CBE Teta. We also work with 16 international money transfer agents, out of which Tune and World Remit enable you to make direct deposits into our savings and current accounts or our popular CBE Burr mobile wallet. Commercial Bank of Ethiopia, the bank you can always rely on.
And finally, the African Continental Free Trade Area, AfCFTA, is the world's largest free trade area, bringing the 55 African countries together under the umbrella of African Union. Information obtained from the AU is showing that the overall mandate of AfCFTA is to create a single continental market with a population of 1.3 billion in Africa. In the following infographics, our staff reporter Haptama Shagre will tell us more on this.
Viewers, welcome to our special edition. Today we're talking about African Continental Free Trade Agreement. What is African Continental Free Trade Agreement? African Continental Free Trade Agreement is a program adopted by African Union Commission and is a part of Agenda 2063. The African Continental Free Trade Agreement is the world's largest free trade area. It seeks to bring 55 African countries of the African Union and 8 regional economic communities. The African Continental Free Trade Agreement entered force on May 30, 2019 after 24 member states agreed to implement it. Within 55 countries, 24 countries are agreed and to realize this mega project, especially in African Continental Free Trade Area and trading system market between African countries. The commencement is trading under the African Continental Free Trade Area was in January 1st, 2021. It launched the 12th extraordinary session of the African Union in Niamey, Niger in July 2019. Some African writers say that Niamey, Niger is the champion of starting that is African Continental Free Trade Agreement by launching this program. It's expected over 30 million Africans lifted from extreme poverty. 1.4 billion Africans are hoping that 30 millions are lifted out of poverty due to implementation of African Continental Free Trade Agreement. Recently, 54 countries are signed the African Continental Free Trade Agreement except Eritrea. Some 44 African countries have ratified their instrument of ratification. What is the major objective of African Continental Free Trade Agreement? Let's see one by one. The first one is to create a single continental market. It aims to bring over 55 African countries within one market system. And the other one is to boost the economy of African countries. As we all know that the African countries' economy is infant economy, so it is very hard to compete within those developed countries. So the objective of African Continental Free Trade Agreement is to boost income within African countries by encouraging their economic level. To create linkage for over 1.3 billion people, there is a platform needed to implement African Continental Free Trade to boost their economic integration, and to create over 1.3 billion people is expected to create a market linkage. To boost GDP of approximately $3.4 trillion annually. To solve trade barriers among African countries, as we all know that African countries' trade relation is insignificant and imbalanced. Due to regulating this problem, African Continental Free Trade Agreement is essential. The next objective of African Continental Free Trade Area is to boost intra-African trade, to minimize extreme poverty in Africa. During the 36th African Head of State Summit, there are a lot of issues are tabled to discussion, to socio-economic and political problems will be solved and evaluated by African Head of States and ministerial meeting. 35 Head of States, 4 Prime Ministers, 13 First Ladies, and other senior government officials, including international organization partners, heads, and director generals, also a part of this meeting. Viewers, this is all about our special edition on African Continental Free Trade Agreement. Stay tuned to TV languages.
Over now to a quick reminder of the headlines. A scholar reiterates African solution for African problems is making a significant difference in the case of Ethiopia. Ethiopia observes 86 Martyrs Day. You have been watching ETV News. Thanks for your company and have a great time.